Good day, ma'am. So, I am John Pabahian. I'll be discussing the nervous system. So, what is nervous system? So, nervous system is the founder of controlling the movements and intellectual functions and detects the sensations, and also it consists with the spinal cord, nerves, and brain, and also the sensation receptor. So, what is sensory input? Sensory input is the process that organizes and distinguishes sensation from one's own body in the environment, thus making it possible to use the body effectively within the environment. So what is integration? Integration refers to the process of combining separate parts or system into a unified whole. In the context of the human body, it means bringing together different parts of the nervous system, such as the brain, spinal cord, and the peripheral nerves, to work together seamlessly. So what is motor output? Motor output refers to the signals sent from the central nervous system, or CNS, to the muscle and glands throughout the body. These signals allow for the voluntary movement and control of various bodily functions. So this part here consists with the central nervous system, peripheral nervous system, sensory division, motor division, autonomic nervous system, somatic nervous system, sympathetic division, parasympathetic division. Some of them are explained and some of them are not explained yet, but later on we're going to explain those kinds of division and system. So what is peripheral nervous system? Peripheral nervous system is what is peripheral nervous system? Peripheral nervous system network of nerves branching out throughout the body from the brain and spinal cord is called peripheral nervous system. Addition to the 31 pairs of spinal nerves and 12 pairs of cranial nerves that attach to the brain. So there are 12 parts of peripheral nervous system. The first one is the olfactory nerve, carries sensory input for the smell that allows you to smell something bad or good. And the second one is the optic nerve, carries sensory input for vision that allows you to see something in front of you. The third one is the oculomotor nerve, controls the muscles of the eye and eyelid that protects your eye from any substance like dust. And the fourth one is the trochlear nerve, controls the eyeball to protect your eyes from any substance like water. And the fifth one is the trigeminal nerves, controls the face, nose, mouth, forehead, and top of the head and jaw. And the sixth part is the abducens. The abducens nerve also controls the eyeballs. So the seventh part, the facial nerve, controls muscles of the face and scalp, and part of the tongue for the sense of taste, which allows you to taste something that you're eating. The eighth part, the auditory or cochlear nerve, provides sensory input for hearing and equilibrium, which allows you to hear something that is making some noise. The ninth part, the glossopharyngeal nerve, controls saliva, swallowing and taste, allows you to swallow something that you are eating and taste it. The tenth part, the vagus. The vagus nerve is the longest cranial nerve extending to and controlling the heart, lungs, and stomach and intestines, which allow your heart to pump blood, lungs to breathe, and stomach to digest. The 11th part, the accessory nerve, permits movement of the head and shoulders, which allow your head and shoulders is to move together. And the hypoglossal nerve controls the muscle of your tongue, which can move in any direction. The autonomic nervous system. The autonomic nervous system is a critical component of nervous system that regulates many of our body's autonomic functions, such as heart rate, blood pressure, digestion, and breathing. It does so without our conscious awareness or intentions. And the autonomic nervous system consists with two main branches, the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system. Each branch has distinct functions and effects on the body.
neuron specifically transmit or designed to transmit messages. So, receive stimuli conduct potential to transmit signals to the neurons or effector organs. So, the cell body is also called the soma. And the spherical part, it is the spherical part of the neuron that contains the nucleus. So, the cell body connects to the dendrites, which bring information to the neurons, and the axon, which are connected or send information to the another neurons. So, fiber is sending message or transmitting message to the next neuron, and also dendrites is carry neurons inside, and also axon is carrying away the neurons. So the axon terminal is the site of neurotransmitter release. It means by neurotransmitter release are chemical messages that release from the axon and delivering and received by effector cells. So the process is critical for delivering message to the cell and the tissue, so that are being controlled. So, myelin of nervous system. So, myelin can increase the speed of electrical impulses in neurons because it insulates the axon and assemble the voltage gate sodium channel cluster to discrete the nodes along its length. So myelin if myelin damage it is cause several neurological diseases such as multiple sclerosis. It affects the spinal cord and the brain of the people who damage their myelin. So the multipolar neurons is had a lot of extension of the cell body and has many dendrites and axon on it. So multipolar neurons also, these neurons are able to receive impulses from multiple neurons via dendrites. So the dendrites transmit the signals from the spread down to the neurons, to the axons. Bipolar neurons is a type of neuron that has two extensions, includes one dendrites and one axon. So it is found in special area of organs such as nose and eyes. Many bipolar cells are specialized sensor of neurons from the transmission of senses. So when we say transmission of senses, it is transmitted of what you feel, what you see, what you smell, what you touch, and that nerve that comes up and transmit the messages into your brain. Unipolar neurons had a one axon and without dendrites. It is able to these neurons have a single long axon Yes, what I said earlier. Also, that is responsible for sending electrical signals. It allows for rapid signal transmission. So it is composed such as transmission of um, skin joints, um, skin joints, tongue, like that. Also, it is from um, also it is in the muscle and skin, carrying just the spinal cord to the brain and to the spinal cord. So it is a nerve impulse, begins with a neuron receive a chemical stimulus. The nerve impulse travels down to axon membrane as an electrical action potential to the axon terminal. So the axon terminal release neurotransmitter that carry the nerve impulse to the next cell. So the first of it is that resting membrane potential. So a resting neuron has a voltage across each membrane called the resting membrane potential, as what I said earlier. Or simplifying, resting potential is determined by membrane permeability to each type of ion. Second is depolarization, is when a charge occurs inside the cell that causes the distribution of electric changes to alter the living cell with less negative charges than the outside. So I'm sorry for some of what I've been said earlier is not in the PPT. Repolarization. Repolarization is a stage of an action potential in which the cell experiences a decrease of voltage due to the cause of influx of potassium K+ ions along its electrochemical substance or gradient. So the action potential. If the potential or nerve impulse starts, it has propagated over the entire axon. So it means that nerve impulse propagates by jumping from one nodes of Ranvier to the next. This makes the process of nerve impulse faster, as impulse does not travel the entire length of the axon. Also, the nerve impulse travel from the speed of 10 milliseconds. I guess 10 milliseconds is that in saltatory conduction. So the next is potassium ion reach out of the neuron after sodium ion rush in, which repolarize again the membrane. So it is also the sodium has positive charges. So when the neuron becomes more positive and become deplorative. So if the sodium interact or close apart with neuron, it can lead to positive charges and become depolarized. So when they do open, potassium rush out of the cell, reversing the depolarization. So the third one is the sodium potassium pumps restore the original configuration. So it leads to the sodium potassium jump restore resting potential because it moves 3 positive charges sodium ion out of the cell and only bring the 2 positively charged potassium ions. So, continuation of nerve impulse between neurons. So, first is impulse are able to cross the synapse to another nerves. So, it means that the place where axon terminal meets another cell is called a synapse. Synapse. So these are where the transmission of the nerve impulses to another cell occurs. And the cell that sends impulses, nerve impulses, is called presynaptic cell. So, and the cell that the cell in the nerve received is called postsynaptic cell. The second is neurotransmitter is released from a nerve of axon terminal. Neurotransmitter is released from the axon terminal when their besides or vesicle fuse with the membrane of the axon terminal, expelling the neurotransmitter into the synaptic cleft. So the third one is the dendrites, and the neuron has receptor that are stimulated by the neurotransmitter rather. So then dendrites contain receptor of neurotransmitter released by nearby neurons. If the signal released from the neuron are significantly strong, then the axon potential will travel to the length of axon of the terminal bottoms, resulting to the release of neurotransmitter into the impulses or to the synapse. So the fourth one and the last one is that the action potential is started in the dendrite. So I'm gonna say about that is that action potential says that occurs first in the soma or proximal dendrites in response to axon. It responds to somatic step depolarization.
Good morning, ma'am. As a continuation of Mr. Picolado's report, so I'm reporting reflexes. So when we say reflexes, it has a two-part. First is reflexes and reflex arc. So reflexes is a rapid, predictable, and regulatory response to stimuli. Then reflex arc is the recruit from sensory neurons to an interneurons to an effective. Then the types of reflexes and regulations. So we have two: autonomic reflexes and somatic reflexes. So first is autonomic reflexes. It is smooth muscles regulation and heart and regulation pressure. Then regulation of glands, digestive system, regulations, and somatic reflexes is activation of skeletal muscles. So next is spinal cord. When we say spinal cord, it is the back part of our body. And did you know that spinal cord has 31 segments? It has 8 cervical segments, 12 thoracic segments, 5 lumbar segments, and 5 sacral segments, and 1 coccygeal segments. But 44 centimeter long spinal cord is shorter than the spinal column, so segments do not perfectly correspond to the vertebra. At each segment of the spinal cord, left and right pairs at sensory and motor nerve branch at the end connect. So to the peripheral nervous system, it impulse travel back and forth to the brain and back to the muscles. Next is the cerebrospinal fluid. It is a colorless fluid is produced in the verticals of the brain. Then it is surrounds the brain, spine, and spinal cord. So it is called the cerebrospinal fluid, and it is cushions the brain and cord from shocks that could cause injuries, and it maintained at a level 1 to 2 and 2 to 3 level. So the next is the spinal cord reflexes. The first is we have two reflexes, spinal cord reflexes. The first is the knee jerk reflexes. Then it is occurs when the femoral muscle is stretched. When we say stretch, can I be mo stretch? When we say stretch, when we're stretching. Then the second is the withdrawal reflexes moves out painful of stimulus. So is the gray and white matter of the central nervous system. So the brain and spinal cord of the central nervous system receives impulses and processes the information and respond with the appropriate actions. Then gray matter of the brain and spinal cord consists of unheated nerve fibers. It cannot be regulated if it is damaged. So in the cortex or surface layer, the white matter makes up the internal structures and consists of myelinated nerve fibers. Then we have three matters. The first is interior white matters. It conductions tracts. Then next is internal gray matters. Mostly cell bodies, and it is have two types, dorsal and anterior. It is dorsal or posterior, anterior or ventral horns. Then next is the central canal filled with cerebrospinal fluid. Then the next is the brainstem. The brainstem contains several nuclei involved in vital body functions such as the control of the heart, blood pressure, and breathing. And if it is small damaged areas of the brainstem, it can cause death. Then, whereas damage to reflect large areas of the cerebellum or the cerebellum often do not. So try to prevent na to can't damage your brain. Last part of my topic is the part of the brainstem. It is consists of these three structures. The first is the gray matters of the main brain control visual, reflexes, and sense of hearing. Then the second is the white matter of the pons plays a role of regulating visual internal organs control. Then the third is the medulla oblongata connects the rest of the brain to the spinal cord. So it is regulates breathing, swallowing, coughing, sneezing, vomiting, breathing, and blood pressure. So I hope you understand. Thank you.
The brainstem comprises three structures. Midbrain gray matter controls visual reflexes, hearing, and pons white regulates visual control. The medulla oblongata is a part of the brain that connects the spinal cord, regulates various bodily functions such as breathing, swallowing, coughing, sneezing, vomiting, heartbeat, and blood pressure. The midbrain is responsible for coordinating eye movements, controlling pupil diameter and lens for shape, and contains nuclei that play a crucial role in vision. Next is the brainstem's lower part. Forming the spinal cord contains crucial fiber tracts and control centers for heart rate, blood pressure regulation, breathing, swallowing, and vomiting. The cortex is divided into four lobes, each corresponding to the skull bones, which is the frontal lobe is for activity, personality, and speech, and the parietal lobe is for language, temperature, and pressure. Then, ang temporal lobes is responsible for processing, hearing, smell, and language. Then, lastly, the occipital lobe is for focuses on vision. The cerebrum, comprising 7 or 8 of the brain's weight, is responsible for the sensory and motor activity, including perception, emotion, consciousness, memory, and voluntary movements. The cortex is divided into left and right hemispheres with bulging folds called gyrus and furrows called sulcus. The cerebrum is divided into surface lobes including the frontal, parietal, occipital, and temporal lobes which are deep grooves. The frontal lobe plays a crucial role in regulating voluntary motor functions, motivation, aggression, mood, and olfactory reception. The parietal lobe is responsible for receiving and consciously perceiving most sensory information like touch, pain, temperature, and balance. The occipital lobe is responsible for receiving and perceiving visual input and is not distinct from other lobes. The temporal lobe is crucial in memory, primarily involved in olfactory and auditory sensations. The right cerebellar hemisphere is linked to language while the left hemisphere is associated visual, facial functions, executive, and attention. The cerebellum is the second largest part. Connects the central nervous system and coordinates voluntary and involuntary movements, adjusting muscles to maintain posture automatically. The diencephalon, comprising the thalamus and hypothalamus, is responsible for transmitting sensory impulses, except for olfactory and motor areas of the cortex. The diencephalon, comprising the thalamus and hypothalamus, is responsible for transmitting sensory impulses, except for olfactory and motor areas of the cortex. The hypothalamus is connected to the pituitary gland, regulates behavior, emotional expression, body temperature, and metabolic activities while also controlling hormonal secretions. The brain and spinal cord the brain and spinal cord are enclosed by three membranes collectively known as the meninges. So the dura mater is the outer membrane, then the arachoid is the middle membrane, and the inside of the membrane is the pia mater.